Hello and welcome to my presentation on CSS Transitions. I am Gwen Alphen. The first thing I'd like to discuss is what are transitions? The transitions are a property that we have available to us with CSS, and the transition property allows you to change the value of different CSS properties over a specified duration, animating the properties as they change from one state to another. So, how do we use transitions? The transitions allow the values of CSS properties to change over time, and they provide us with simple animations. So, what are the steps to create a simple transition? The first thing we need to do is declare the original state of the element in the default style declaration. And then we have to declare the final state of our transitioned element, for example, a hover state. Then we need to include the transition functions in your default style declaration using the transition properties, and there are 4 of those. There's transition property, transition duration, transition timing function, and transition delay. There is also the ability to use a shortcut version of this where you just tell it transition, and then you start with the property, duration, timing function, and transition delay. And with all 4 of those, if you don't want to, like with the duration or the timing, if you don't want it to do the duration, the amount of time it takes to be instant, it will. The timing function, ease in, ease out. And then the transition delay, which I will explain more in detail later. Okay, the transition property. This is where we identify the property we want to transition, like the background color, the font size, the width of an element. Or we can say all, and that is all properties that have a changed state in that section, which could be via a hover will transition. The transition duration. This is the amount of time we want to occur while the property is changing from one value to another. It can be defined in seconds or it can be milliseconds. So this could be either instant if you don't have the transition duration time set, or you could have it take seconds to do. The transition timing function. This defines how the transition will proceed over the course of its duration. Or to put it another way, it defines the style or manner of the transition. It can take a number of predefined keyword values such as linear, which is a constant speed. Ease in, it starts slowly and speeds up at the end. Ease out, it starts fast and slows down to the end of the transition. Ease is a slow start and it gradually builds. And ease in out is similar, but it's a faster, it's a sharper acceleration in the movement. And then there's the transition delay. This property defines how much of a delay should take place before the transition occurs. And once again, it's defined in seconds or milliseconds. You can leave out the transition delay. It works just fine. It will just start immediately. Or you can delay it in seconds and milliseconds. And then you can do multiple transitions on a single element. So, to transition multiple properties on a single element, we have 2 choices. First, we can use the all keyword, and this will transition all properties the exact same way. Or we can define multiple transitions on a single declaration, separating them by using commas. And the example of that is shown, and you transition. You want the first you want the color taking 0.4 seconds to ease out. But then you also want the width to ease out, but you want it to take a little bit longer, 0.7 seconds, and it's a linear, so it'll be an even width change. So, to show my examples. Okay, first I have this first box. We're using the regular declarations, not the shorthand. First I have the transition property set to width, the transition duration to 3 seconds, which is a long time, but I wanted to make sure you could really see the difference in the timing functions. And this one I'm using the ease out timing function, and I wanted it to wait a half a second before it did that. Now I do have in my CSS on the background, I'm changing the color on all of them. So, but if I don't have the transition telling it to do the color, the transition will be immediate, and the width on this first one will change within 3 seconds. And it goes out, and then I take off the hover, the color goes back, and then it slowly transitions to the size that I wanted it. The second one I'm using, the rest of these I am using the shorthand version. Instead of declaring each of the properties with each individual line, I have them all in one line. And this one I have the width to go out 3 seconds using the ease in out. And the font, I'm changing the font in 1.5 seconds and using the ease, and that I want it to wait a second before it changes size. So here it goes. And the font doubled in size, the width went out, then I take it off, and it changes back. Okay, this third one, I have just ease for the width. And there again, the color is changing immediately. Now, the fourth one, I chose to transition the background color, but to ease in. But the width, it's going to automatically go across. And then for the fifth one, I'm transitioning the background and the width, but I'm using ease in for the background and just the linear, even all the way across transition for the width. And so that's the demonstration of different states of transitions. They just give a little extra oomph to our web pages. And the references I used for this are the Jumpstart CSS by Louis Lazarus is in our site point information. And then I have HTML and CSS for the real world. And the third source I'm using is Sam's Teach Yourself HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all in one by Jennifer Kernan and Julie C. Maloney. And I hope you learned something about the CSS transitions. I know I've learned so much about them. And thank you for watching.